This is the Huey Alert Podcast with Craig and Shelley Huey, bringing you the tools to transform our nation and culture, the intersection of faith and politics.
Hi, it's Craig Huey, the Huey Alert Podcast, and I'm so glad you're listening or you're watching today. You know, when Shelley and I do these podcasts, we want to be able to provide you with fresh new information that you won't get elsewhere. And unfortunately, Shelley's not with me for this podcast, but I hope that what I'm presenting is something that's going to help every one of you. Whether you're a parent, a grandparent, or a taxpayer, the fact is today, there's so many groups that are part of what's called the resistance. There's the judges who are resisting what's going on in Washington, D.C. There's resistance against Elon Musk and all the fraud and abuse and waste of money that he's identifying. There's resistance going on in the communities against senators and congressmen, and of course the resistance of the deep state. There's so many areas where there's organized, purposeful resistance to try to stop Donald Trump doing what he needs to do to make America great again. And the fact is, this resistance, one of it is one of the greatest deceptions of all, and that is with the Department of Education. Again, if you're a taxpayer, if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, the fact is the resistance is alive and well on the local level with organizing, mobilizing, trying to get people upset about the whole issue of what Donald Trump is doing to education today. What is he doing and what is going on? What is this whole idea of doing away with the Department of Education? What about the issue of local control of schools? What about the issue of private schools and homeschooling and being able to finally educate these kids? Because the deception right now is that the kids are being educated. But the reality is there's just a failure where we're paying the most money of any nation in the world, outrageous amounts of money per student, and yet the outcome of that education is horrific. You've got functionally illiterate kids that can't read, kids that can't do math, kids that when they get out of school have no functional ability to even survive. And so we see the downward spiral. And Donald Trump and the congressional delegation that is trying to make changes in the education area, what they're doing right now is recognizing there's a major problem. And this whole idea of abolishing the Department of Education, let's cover that first, and then we'll dig down into the local level. The fact is, the Department of Education was developed in 1980 by President Jimmy Carter. It's not part of the Constitution. It's not part of the history of America of having it as a cabinet level. It was actually part of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. And then it was split off into this separate bureaucracy. So that today, basically what we have are 4,000 employees of the Department of Education. It's about 2.6 or $7 billion a year in just salaries. And it has a whole budget of $796 billion. So it's a huge amount of money. But what's happening is only a fraction of that money gets down to the states and down to the local schools. Indeed, 10% of all the money that a local school district has comes from the federal government. And there are a few programs like special needs that the federal government does. And we'll address those in a moment. But the fact is, it's bureaucrats that are mainly ideologically driven. and they're running the Department of Education. And they're creating programs and mandates that are full of regulations, red tape, and their own particular ideology. And that ideology has ruined our education system. Instead of having an education system that's for the kids, it's an education system for the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., and in the state level and at the local level. It's an education system that's meant for the administration and for the teachers. And the students, what they're doing is they're getting mediocre or worse education. So how do we improve it? What do we do? And that's what they're taking a look at. The first thing Trump did is he did away with $100 million worth of federal money that was allocated for DEI. We've talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how that is a Marxist form of ideology that is designed to ruin people, to teach them to hate. They've done away with about $881 million worth of contracts that made no sense. You see, there's waste in this federal bureaucracy. It's unaccountable. Nobody knows who accomplishes what. And they're simply trying to put on layers of regulations and programs that they think are good. And then it just never gets down to the local level. And that's why Trump's idea is to move all the money from the state to the states, all the money to the local areas, and ultimately to open it up to school choice. The ultimate goal and idea is to be able to have the local control of the schools and school choice, where you can get a kid out of a failing school. You get a kid out of a school that isn't teaching and move them into a school that is working, is teaching, is developing that child and doing the right thing. And so we need to be able to understand that when we hear about all the protests, when we see the organizing in the local community, this is being done by professional organizers with a plan to stir up people in opposition to what's going on in Washington, D.C. It's the resistance. And it's now up to us to be able to give prayer and thoughtful support and encouragement to the local school board, to the congressman, to the senator, that what's going on in Washington, D.C. is to be applauded, not opposed. We're seeing right now a huge, magnificent effort in over 20 states towards school choice. We need to see this expanded. You know, my wife, she often says that there's probably right now in any particular school, 20% of the teachers who could care less about teaching at all. They just want to get out. And we've got a whole school system where it's on tenure. There's no merit pay. You know, teachers have other incentives to get higher pay, but nothing about teaching the kids and having higher performance. The whole idea of being able to train the kids, they can be trained, but they can't be trained in the current school system. Those who want to try to keep the current system with federal money, with state money, with local money in these government schools, it's now such a failure, such an indoctrination center. It is basically producing a whole group of kids that don't know history, don't know math, don't know how to read, and that's got to stop. And it's not going to stop by simply changing a school board, as much as that would be good in many cases. It's only going to stop when there's competition. And the public schools, the government schools, have to compete with the private schools. and the private schools, the Christian schools, and the homeschoolers. They need that protection, they need that encouragement, and they need to be able to have this monopoly that is hurting the kids and hurting the taxpayers. Have that removed. And so, as you're hearing people complain about what Trump's doing, understand this. He's doing what's best for the kids. And so stand up for school choice. Stand up for getting rid of the Department of Education. If there's a program that should be in existence that the Department of Education is doing, send it over to another department in the federal government. Otherwise, what Trump wants to do is simply give it to the states and the local school districts. Let them handle it. And when you have that local control, you're going to have more efficiency, more accountability, and you're not going to have so much waste on the taxpayer. And ultimately, let's open the schools. If you're reluctant or concerned about school choice, we'll have another discussion down the road on that. But I got to tell you, to fix the school system, where you've got teaching universities indoctrinating the teachers, and you got the teachers in the school system indoctrinating the kids, it's not going to change. The only way we're going to turn things around and establish a education system that helps the kids and prepares the kids is to be able to have the school choice. The current structure will not. And so if you know of a conservative politician or legislator who is opposing school choice, what they're basically doing is going along with resistance. And it's a sad commentary. I hope this has been helpful in understanding and giving you a glimpse of what's going on in Washington, D.C., what's going on with the resistance, and what's going on as we try to make not only America great again, but to make education great again. Hey, thanks for listening, and don't forget to send this off to people on your contact list, and don't forget to like or follow on the platform you're listening or watching, and so that way you'll always be notified when the podcast is available. Actually get an early warning that it's going to be available before everybody else. So next week, my beautiful bride will be with me, and until then, God bless you.
Thanks for joining us this week. We are listener-supported, so please consider partnering with us by donating at craighuey.com or by signing up for our free newsletter. We look forward to being with you next week. And don't forget to share this podcast with others.
Hi, it's Craig Huey. And you know what's exciting today is that in Washington, D.C., we're finally seeing the dismantling of the deep state. Never before have so many ideologically driven bureaucrats been fired. And what is happening is going to be transformational. You see, these ideological bureaucrats are the ones who are embedded within the federal government, the massive government complex that is basically destroying our freedoms, involved in censorship, against religious liberty, the ones that are helping hurt our economy. Because what these ideological bureaucrats want to do is they want to transform our culture and our politics through the government. And now, with the disruption of Trump and the cabinet picks, that is being dismantled. So what is the deep state? And when you hear about this, what is it? Well, that's why I wrote this book called The Deep State, 15 Surprising Dangers You Should Know. In this book, I talk about what the deep state is. I explain how it began. I talk about what they did in the last 5-6 years. In this book, I talk about Obama's secret army, the group of bureaucrats that Obama implanted to be able to subvert Trump from ever being able to hire people he wanted, and why their plot did not work. And you're going to read about so many different things to get an idea, even of media collusion, with the deep state. Want to know what the deep state is? This is the best way to learn and find out. So take a look on your screen how to order this book. I'd be glad to sign it for you. And if you use that QR code, or if you use the text to be able to buy it. If you buy it on Amazon, you'll get it maybe a day or two sooner. And I won't be able to sign it, but you can get it also on Amazon. You can get an audio version of the book as well. And so be sure to get my book, The Deep State, 15 Surprising Dangers You Should Know. Thank you.